Whenever someone asks me who my favorite Disney princess is, I always say Maynard from Tool. And today, we're gonna find out why. Because I was watching the new Aladdin movie, and I was listening to the music, and I'm like, this music is really excellent. And that all comes from the OG, the GOAT, Alan Menken, who is one of the great movie composers of all time. And how he kind of incorporates one scale into his playing that really Tool uses in kind of the same way. So I want to talk about this scale right now. You could call it like the Arabian scale, the double harmonic major scale, whatever it is, it's an alteration of the major scale, which is why it has a little bit of an Eastern sound, but it still sounds good to Western, ears, I suppose. So real quick, we're gonna run through the E major scale. Now, those are the notes, the 7 notes in music that sound good to a Western music listener's ear, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now, in an Arabian scale, we just have a couple variations. Instead of this, it's this. Okay, so just playing the notes in order, forward and backwards, already sounds kind of, exotic, Eastern, Arabian, however you want to look at it, all right? So again, if we start on this E, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take what's usually a major second and turn it into a minor second, or a flat 2, if you want to call it that. So we have the 7th fret to the 8th fret. Right off the bat, that kind of sounds exotic, right? And then we're going to jump from there to the regular major third, which again, in the key of E, I've got 7A, 8A, 6D, 7D, 9D. So as far as the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th are concerned, it's the exact same thing as regular E major, Arabian, okay? And then after this, we're gonna grab its minor 6, major 7, and home, okay? So all together, this scale would be 7A, 8A, 6D, 7D, 9D, 10D, 8G, 9G. Okay, so forward and backwards. When you think of the music of Aladdin, quite literally the first thing that hits you sounds kind of like this. Okay, this is really just an E note, and then we're just running through the first 4 notes of that scale. Right, and then backwards. So it's almost like announcing that we have this note, kind of representing what our home key is, E, and then off the bat, it hits you with that Arabic scale, okay? Now, the really cool thing about Alan Menken, again, who I think is one of the great composers, just look up his filmography, and like every great Disney song you've ever heard was pretty much written by him. If we kind of go through the scale and start on a certain note, right? If we go here, if we start on this note, 1, 2, 3, the 4th note of this scale, and we kind of play through it, this already sounds very familiar to a lot of people because this is the beginning of a minor scale. If we just played this note, but the minor scale, it would sound very familiar to like a Westerner's ears as far as like what rock music, which is really where Tool is going to come in just a second. But if we play through the rest of that scale, that's kind of, the main melody of that Arabian Nights type thing. It's coming from this scale, but we're kind of taking a little piece of that that's a little more familiar inside of that, and that's coming from a root note, it's regular 2, and it's minor 3rd, and it's 5th. Which again, from this, you can get a lot of, Western sounding things. That's a very Western thing kind of tucked away inside this scale. So when you go through that whole melody, you can really get a lot of the notes from that soundtrack. Now what I want to do is talk about how that relates to Tool and some of Tool's greatest songs and how they actually incorporate the same thing, okay? One of my all-time favorite Tool songs is 46 and 2. It sounds like this. Okay, so that's kind of like the main riff that we have going on here. And if we talk about just like the minor scale, because if you look up, okay, what key is 46 and 2 in? They'll be like, all right, well, it's in D minor, which is kind of true, but also not really true, and we're gonna talk about that in a second right now. So like, if we have a D note, and we drone an octave D, and we do that move right there, just open D to 7G, which is a higher D, and and then hammer on from 5 to 7. We're grabbing a root note, and it's minor 7th, okay? Very rock and roll thing, very Tool thing that we have going on here, but right after that, right there, there's that minor 2nd from the Arabic scale that we've done before, okay? So now let's kind of switch everything we did. The Arabian Nights thing was more in E Arabic. Now let's bring everything down to D, which is, you know, the Tool drop D, the Tool key of choice, I suppose, right? So if we loop that riff, and start on a D and play that same scale, it sounds very fitting, very appropriate. And even if we take some of the melody from that, you can definitely hear the influence from, but the main difference being that minor 7, which is always 2 frets back from the root note instead of 1 fret, where that Arabic scale is. So we still have the grounded nature of the rock of that minor 7 added on top of this very kind of Arabic exotic type riff. That minor 7. There's that minor 7 instead of the double harmonic major 7. So, to kind of recap, it's almost the total Arabic double harmonic major, whatever you want to call it, scale, but with just a little something extra that grounds us in rock, which is why Tool is like such an amazing band, because it's like, what does Tool sound like? It doesn't really sound like anything. It doesn't really sound like rock, but there are elements of it. It doesn't sound super exotic, but a lot of times there are very exotic elements of it. And again, a lot of it is just kind of like the band working together and the percussion and stuff like that. But melodically speaking, it does a lot of the same things. So you could even play some of the other melodies, right? If we said this is in D, there's where Menken starts his run. And I think a lot of it is just kind of like different little tricks compositionally, and they come from really just altering scales that we already know and know really well in a lot of ways. So maybe if you kind of feel stuck just playing like the same lead lines over and over again, take a page from Maynard's book, from Alan Menken's book, and also Adam Jones too, but you know, really the whole band in general. And just maybe alter one note in a scale, or just experiment with a more exotic scale and try to like take traditional chords, but use different intervals. Specifically this minor 2nd, which you will find in major keys if you think of like Phrygian and stuff like that too. But again, I think it really just comes down to altering things that you know to kind of branch out and try a lot of different things. So just kind of a connection that I thought I wanted to share with you guys because I think it's really interesting. If you guys have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website. I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot.